with Amy K YouTube Live, and today I'm going to show you how I made a little Christmas card with the Peaceful Evergreens stamp set. And yeah, it's a little peace on earth kind of Christmas card. I used a couple of other stamp sets with it, and actually you probably aren't going to believe it, but not a single die was used in the making of this card. So, which is kind of a rare thing for me. Normally I use a lot of dies, but this one is pretty clean and simple actually, and it's really quick to make. The only thing that takes a little time is the ink blending on the background, but I just wanted to show you how I did it in case you were wanting to replicate something like that. Like I said, it's just really easy to do. You just need a couple blending brushes, some shades of blue inks, and a little bit of black ink, and you're set to go. So, hey, Karen and Susan and Pam and Sally, thanks for joining. I appreciate you being here. So this is the Peaceful Evergreens stamp set. It is bundled in the mini catalog, the current mini catalog. There are some dies that will cut out your tree images, and then there's some layering trees. There's a little bow die, but of course I didn't use any of those in my video today. I just used the stamp set for the images on the card front. And then I also used the Shepherd's Care stamp set. I used the little Peace on Earth because I thought it was kind of perfect with the card that I was making. I like the sentiment with the trees and kind of the snowy background. So that's where the sentiment came from. And then inside of the card, actually, I put another sentiment in here, which is from the Greetings of the Season, which is one of the online exclusive items. So it is this big sentiment down here that I used on the card front. So again, quick and easy little card. So I see Bonnie's here, and Joanne, and Deborah, and Sherry, and Kathy. Thanks everybody for hopping in. All right, so couple things before we get going. First, online exclusives. There are some new ones that have been put in the online store. I think it was November. I think it was the beginning of November. I don't know, the weeks and days have all just kind of mushed together. So I think it was the beginning of November when some new items were available. There's some Valentine things. There's a cute little otter set. There's a hibiscus set. There's a whole bunch of things. The little wedding car set, a whole bunch of things. So anytime you're out there, definitely go take a look in the online store and click on that online exclusives button. It's in the menu that's on the upper left if you're on your computer. So go take a look at those. Always make sure that you are peeking at those every time. Those items will kind of come and go randomly. They are not tied to any catalog. So, you know, like I said, when they're gone, they're gone. So if it's in the online store and you want it, be sure to grab it. So hey, Marilyn and Deborah. So I appreciate that. All right. Again, just a small sampling of the items that are in the current online exclusives. And ta-da, today we got some more online exclusives that demonstrators can pre-order from. Lots of beautiful spring things in there. And actually, I mean, it's as good or better than the stuff that's in the mini catalog, in my opinion. I was like, I saw them all and I kept adding to cart and add to cart and add to cart, and I may have ordered a few or almost all of them. So anyway, the online exclusives are really good. So again, just some new things that are coming. Again, this is just a very small sampling of the upcoming products. But there's an embossing folder, some gems, mixed florals stamp set, the mixed labels stamp set bundle. I guess both of these are bundles. And there's some Memories of More card pack cards that go with it. So lots of fantastic new items that'll be coming. The new set of online exclusives are going to be available starting on January 7th. But if you join as a demonstrator, you can actually get your hands on them now. You can put them as part of your starter kit, or you can do other things in your starter kit and then pre-order them. So whatever works best for you. If you have questions about joining, let me know. We'd love to have you come join us. Starter kit is $99, and you get to pick $125 worth of your favorite Stampin' Up! Merchandise, and the kit will ship for free. And then after that, you can pre-order to your heart's content. So, all right. Well, let me actually get started with the card base. Let's do that first. So, hey, Linda and Judy, thanks. I'm glad you're here and able to catch me live. So, my original card, as you can see, is one of my standard top fold cards. That is my favorite card base, so that's how I usually make them. But I do like to show you, if I have a card base handy, that you can usually make most of my cards with either a top fold or a side fold on the card bases. So, this card base, the original one, was 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2 across the top. The card base we're going to be using today is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2 and scored at 4 1/4 down the middle. So this is your standard book fold card base. Again, this is thick basic white cardstock that I am going to be working with for my card front. So I've got Stays On jet black ink, which I will honestly say I don't use very often. Now that we've got Memento Black and the Stampin' Blends markers, I just don't use the Stays On very often. Every once in a while I pull it out for a project like this, or if I'm going to be watercoloring, I do it. But yeah, that's about all. So I'm going to take my sentiment from the Shepherd's Care stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp it here lower on the card front in the lower right corner. If you want it on the lower left corner, you can do it on the lower left corner. You just need to be aware of where you're putting it when you are doing your tearing of the little panel that we're going to put over the top of the card front. So, all right, now back to this one. This is just standard basic white cardstock, and I'm still going to leave my Stays On jet black ink out, and we're just going to do a little stamping of some trees. And again, these are from the Peaceful Evergreens stamp set, which is one of the stamp sets that's in the current mini, so it's available now. As far as I know, it hasn't gone on back order, so I think we're still good and still available to order. Let me flip this over, and I'm going to stamp it kind of down near the bottom. It doesn't need to be all the way down to the bottom. And then, hey, Danette and Amanda and Julie, thanks for hopping in. And then I'm going to take it again and stamp it a second time without re-inking it, kind of next to it. So there we go, get the lighter version of the tree. Then I'm going to grab the skinnier, taller, maybe I should move this aside as I ink up my image here. Yikes. So, and I find it easier when I'm doing an image like this, especially with the Stays On or the Memento ink, to put the image face up and then stamp, or then put the ink on the stamp rather than trying to do it the other way around, just because I don't know, it's just easier for me to see where I'm inking things at and making sure that I've got good coverage on the stamp. And also it helps when I'm throwing stuff around too. So, you know, so there's that. All right. So let me ink up this image again. This is the smallest of the trees from that tuxedo black, from that Peaceful Evergreen stamp set. And we're just going to take that and stamp it, I think kind of generally, I was trying to decide, we'll do it right here. And then we'll stamp it a second time here. And it doesn't matter that it's kind of floating in midair, because we're going to tear off the bottom piece of it so nobody's going to really notice that it's floating in midair. And we'll stamp another one of the littler trees over here. And then I think I'm going to come back in, trying to decide, I think I'm going to use this tree, the taller one, stamping it on scrap paper, and then because I wanted a lighter image over here, we'll do that. All right, so I think we've got all of our trees stamped, and let me put that back on and try to get as much of the black ink off of my fingers as I can, because yeah, I'll end up with that everywhere. All right, now we're going to start doing the fun part, which is the inking. And I'm not going to tear off the bottom just yet, and it doesn't matter if you do tear it off. You can do that first if you want to. I just like to have a little bit of something to hold on to around the bottom of it. It just makes it a little easier for me, but that's just me personally. Got some Pool Party ink and a blending brush. This ink is probably the one that takes the longest to add it because it's the lightest color. So I kind of have to keep inking and inking and inking, and you'll just be like, okay, that's enough inking already, but it takes a minute with the lighter inks. Usually when I'm using a blending brush, I will actually ink up the blending brush, and then I will sort of swirl it on my grid paper. But with these really light inks like this one, I find that I don't need to. I can pretty much go straight to the project with it. And I'm just going to do a big circle here and keep inking it. And you probably can't see it. I'm starting to see the ink show up on it. A little bit of blue ink on there, and it kind of gives it just a nice little glow. So to me, what I was going for was like a kind of a winter night, I guess is what I was trying to make it look like. There was a big old bright moon back there, and you know, kind of a winter evening sky when it's snowing and dark outside, and that's what I was going for. So I don't know if I accomplished that or not. And I apologize if you hear the dog on the floor here. She's suddenly decided she's got to get up and sniff all of the boxes that I've got here in my office and every little bit of whatever Stampin' Up stuff I have around. So, all right, a couple more swirls of the Pool Party ink. Yeah, I may need to, but it's been a little bit since I've inked the ink pad. Probably could have re-inked it and maybe, but then if I do that, sometimes I find if I'm using blending brushes that I then really do need to make sure that I kind of brush off on scrap paper before I go to the card project, because it'll end up with a glob of ink. So, all right, I think we're getting there. All right, just kind of trying to give it a little glow. I'm going to close it up for now. I can always come back and add more ink. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to try to remove it. So, all right. Yep, it's definitely getting there. It just takes a minute. All right, next color I've got is Misty Moonlight. And that one I'm definitely going to go to my grid paper with first. And I'm just going to kind of start making a little bit of like a half circle around it. And again, even the darker colors, it takes a couple layers, especially when if I'd started with, you could try it on Pool Party cardstock maybe, if you wanted it to go a little faster rather than inking it with Pool Party ink. You could probably start with a Pool Party cardstock and ink it that way. You know, just add the darker inks around the edges of it. So that's worth a try. I don't know. I didn't think to do that. I was too busy worrying about using the white cardstock. So that's what I did. I didn't think to try it on Pool Party, but you certainly could give it a whirl if you want to do that to make it go a little faster. All right, there we go. It's getting a little darker. And I know that this ink pad is really inky. So like I said, I'm trying to intentionally swirl it a little bit so that I don't end up with a big glob of ink anywhere. And I'm coming in all the way from the edges with this ink rather than just doing the little circle around the Pool Party in the center, because I'm going to layer on even a darker ink. We're going to do Night of Navy next, so that'll be the next ink up on my list. But I want to kind of layer everything one on top of the other. So that's why, I don't know, I find it looks a little bit more blended if I just keep layering inks on rather than just doing little circles of ink starting in the center and growing outwards. So in my opinion, I like the way it looks better that way. All right, I think this will be the last little swirl with the Misty Moonlight. And then we'll move on to Night of Navy. And got another blending brush for that. And I probably could have used the same blending brush for all of these inks, but I kept them separate just because sometimes I go back and add a little bit more of one of the colors, and I didn't want to have it all inked with Night of Navy and then not be able to go add a little more Pool Party if I wanted to. So, oh, it has actually, I didn't even notice I dressed according to my card. One of my team members, Karen, who I think is on the video still, watching the video, she matches her fingernails to her card that she makes when she does her lives. I don't. My fingernails are kind of look like the dog has chewed on them, so I don't tend to make my fingernails look pretty. So, all right, adding a little bit more. And then maybe one more swirl around the edges here. Make sure that I've got it as dark as I want it to be. And this is definitely the most time-consuming thing on this card. So once you get this part done, it's all, just putting everything together from there. All right, let me close this one up. I'm going to come back in, I think, and just do one more swirl over everything with Pool Party in the center and just make sure that I've got that inked up as well as I want it to be here in the middle. All right, and kind of blend it a little bit more and brighten up that center just a little bit. All right, I think we will call that good. Now comes the fun part, making Northern Lights. Yeah, it definitely would be cool to make Northern Lights with it and I've seen people do it with like the purples and the greens and whatever, so definitely would be very pretty if you want to give that a whirl. So now I'm just gonna start with my tearing and just gonna sort of rip it across here. And then I just need to lay it on top of my card front. And you'll see I need to rip a little bit more. So my sentiment must be a little bit higher than what I thought it was. So we'll just rip off a little bit more, maybe another 1/4 of an inch or so. like that. We'll give that a try and see if that, yep, that seems to fit a little bit better. Probably didn't need to rip it quite as high up there if I didn't want to, but it's done and torn, so we're going to leave it at that. Now I'm going to take my blending brushes and whatever ink I have left on them. I think this was the Night of Navy. Doesn't really matter. And just going to ink the edges here to make sure that it doesn't have the white kind of glowy edge on it. And then we'll do a little bit more in the center here. And I think we will call that good for the ink blending. So get the little ripped up pieces of cardstock out of here. The last thing I'm going to do on this panel, well, second to last because I got to stick it down, is I've got the craft ink, the white craft ink, and this is the old style ink pad. They have updated the ink pad. This just is not a color that I use very often, so I haven't gotten a new one yet. So, but there is a newer style of the craft ink that, a newer style ink pad. It's one of the flip fold ones, like the new ink style of ink pads. Actually, I think I need to re-ink this. Looks like that's another thing I find with the craft white ink is that I don't really put a whole lot of ink refill on it just because it dries really quickly. I made this card, I don't know, a couple days ago, and the ink pad has already dried in the meantime. So I just add a little bit of ink as I need it and then get it all over my finger so that I can make a huge mess. And there we go. All right. All right, so well, there we go. That's a little bit more the look that I was going for. Wanted to look like it was snowing. And I just kind of randomly turned it around as I was stamping the snow on it. There isn't like any special way that I did it. I just kind of went around the edge of the card, concentrating a little bit more of the ink on the edges, I should say. So it wasn't that I only stamped on the edges, but just tried to concentrate it a little bit more there. Stamped a little here across the top. And then maybe a couple more here along the sides. And we will call that good. So trying to make it look a little like a snowy night. So, I'm glad y'all are liking the card. Like I said, it's such a quick and easy one to make. So, and I've made a couple like it in the past. So, but it's always fun to pull it out and use it again. So, all right, I've got linen thread. We're just going to wrap this around the card front here twice. And the Whisper White Craft ink probably is not dry on my card front yet, and it doesn't matter because even if it smears a little, it's kind of messy looking anyway with the way that I stamped it, and I did that intentionally so that if it didn't stamp perfectly, I didn't care. So there you go. All right, feel free to case away. I'm glad you're liking it, Carol. So Carol makes beautiful cards too. So all right, wrapped it around linen thread around the card front twice, and we're just going to tie a little bow here off to the one side. Going to try to pull the linen thread so that it's somewhat tight here on the card front, and then tie a little bow. Well, first I'm going to tie a knot to hold the thread in place. There we go. All right, I think we got it. And disintegrated when yeah, the craft ink is kind of fussy. I don't know. It's, you know, I just don't use mine very often, and I would bet that my craft ink is old enough that if I tried to drag it across anything, it would do the same thing, and I'd have chunks of ink pad everywhere. It seems to work okay for stamping yet, which is what I usually use it for, so I haven't worried about replacing it yet. So someday I'll have to, I know, but for right now, it's good, working well enough. All right, so we've got this messy old card front on here. I'm just going to flip it over and put some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of it. And Amanda's asking, did I get signed up for Onstage? I did. I was one of the lucky people who was able to get in, thank goodness. I know many of my team members were not, they were looking forward to going. So we shall see who gets in. Hopefully a few more of them will as well, and hopefully you did too. So it should be fun. Onstage is one of those demonstrator-only events that once you join, if you decide to join as a demonstrator, you could come and attend as well. It's in March, and it's in Raleigh, North Carolina this year. So looking forward to heading down south, and hopefully it'll be a little warmer than New Jersey in March. All right, going to take this and adhere it to the card front, and just trying to make sure that it's even around the edges before I stick it down. That's the main thing. Trying to get it on here kind of straight. Okay, and then smushing it down like that. So, oh, you're going to France? Wow, that'll be awesome. I did not, yeah. It would be fun to definitely go to one of the out of the country events. I thought about going, was in Austria a couple years ago, and I thought about going then, but I didn't do it. I chickened out and went to the US location instead. So, all right, so I've got a couple, and I'm going to scoot these around here a little bit because I don't like the way that one was placed in particular. Got a couple of these are pecan pie and clear ribboned adhesive back gems. And these are also part of the online exclusives. And I'm going to stick them down here next to my sentiment. Just gives it a little bit of shine on the card front. And yeah, that's about it. So there you go. That's it for the card front. So super quick and easy. Like I said, the hardest part is just getting the inking done around the edges of it. And that's not really even very hard. It just takes lots of layering, so you don't end up with any globs on it. That's the most difficult thing for me anyway, is just making sure that I don't end up with a big blop of ink somewhere that I'm looking at and going, oh, that isn't quite how I wanted it to turn out. So, all right, let me grab my Misty Moonlight ink and my sentiment, which is, again, the sentiment is from the Greetings of the Season stamp set. This sentiment is, I should say. The sentiment on the card front is from the Shepherd's Care stamp set. So there we go. Get this lined up here somewhat straight. And there we go. Misty Moonlight for that ink. I'm going to close it up. And then grab my tree images again. And we're just going to stamp those in jet black ink again. If you wanted to stamp them in one of the shades of blue, you certainly could do that. You just need to get your stamps cleaned in between times because the old stays on will definitely make a mess of your other ink pads. Ask me how I know, because yep, I've accidentally done that before where it was yellow when I was using it. I think I was making bumblebees or something. And it stamped something in jet black ink. And then grabbed it and decided I wanted to change the color to yellow, only I didn't clean the ink pad, and then whoopsies. So time for a new yellow ink pad. So, because yeah, the stays on doesn't really come out of those very well. All right, I'm going to grab my little skinny tree and stamp it here next to the larger tree. And then finally, we're going to ink that little tree, the shorter one. Make sure it's inked up well, and then we'll just stamp that over here on the opposite side of the card. And that's it for the inside. So let me close this up before I stick my sleeve in it, which is easy for me to do. And then we'll just adhere that to the inside of the card, and we'll be all done for today. So all the details for this card will be posted on my blog tomorrow, which is stampwithamyk.com. I'll link directly to the blog post once it goes live around 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, so you can find that in the section in the description of this video. Once it goes live, I will link up to it so you can find all the details there, the cardstock cuts, the products that I used, PDF tutorial telling you how I did everything. So that is that. All right, so the inside of the card is all done. And we'll fold it closed here and grab the bone folder and just do a quick crease up the edge of it and make sure I get a good solid crease on the card. And that's it. So super quick and easy, and I think pretty card. It's one of my favorite cards that I've ever made, clearly because I've made a similar version. Kind of anytime we've had an evergreen tree, I've made some similar versions of it. And yeah, so hopefully y'all like it. It's quick and easy, and like I said, I promise it's not difficult at all. Just need a couple inks and not even any dies. Can you believe that? I'm trying to think of the last time that I've made a card with no dies. It's been a long time. So, and as you can see, the tear on it, on the bottom of it, turns out a little bit different depending on how you tear it, where you tear it. So again, that's going to look a little different with each of the cards that you make. But if you want it to be torn off a little bit shorter, tear it off shorter. Want it a little longer, tear it off longer. And then just make sure you stamp your sentiment accordingly. Other than that, it's a pretty quick and easy card. So, all right, thanks everybody for joining. I will plan to be live around 2 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. And then I'll plan to be back around 2 o'clock Eastern time next week, Tuesday. Next week is Thanksgiving here in the U.S., so I am probably not going to go live on Friday just because I'm going to have family here. But I'll plan to be live on Tuesday and then the following Tuesday after that. So let me know if you have questions about anything. I appreciate you all being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will chat with you all soon.